All right. It is 4 p.m. on Tuesday, December 17th, and we will call the City of Brainerd Park Board to order and start with roll call.
Here.
Yes.
Yes. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to add a presentation by Mr. Dave Badeau regarding the banner program.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second on the agenda amendment. Any further discussion? Yes, we will call it 8B, yes. Any-
Banner program.
Banner program. Call it Brainerd Community Action.
Very good. Further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. The amended agenda is now approved, including 8B. Moving on to the consent calendar, notice to the public. All matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar consisting of the minutes, the disbursements, and the financial reports.
Second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the consent calendar? All right, Mike, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The consent calendar is approved, so we will move on to, well, we could have probably done presentations, but I guess we'll move on to unfinished business, the discussion on the pickleball courts. Mike?
Yes, so last week there was a meeting, and thanks to the mayor and you, Jonathan, for attending that. And they had a great presentation as far as resurfacing the pickleball or the tennis courts at Gregory Park. Just overall, just philosophy now. I have a hard time removing any amenity for another amenity when that amenity is in good condition, right? But when a group of, it's really refreshing when a group of individuals come and say, hey, we have a plan to help you and the city and the residents of Brainerd here, and we not only have an idea, but they're funding this. So, you know, it's really awesome that this group is doing that, and I haven't reached out to them yet, and I need to. And just saying, you know, I love the enthusiasm and love the motive, and because pickleball is a big up-and-coming sport. One thing that I do want to, talk about with the other side of the amenity is the Tennis Association. I want to reach out to them, and I am going to reach out to them just to make sure that they're all up on board and moving forward with this action. Does anybody have everyone okay with that direction, thought?
Questions, comments, or concerns on at least the direction? We can kind of give a brief summary of what we discussed at the meeting, the mayor and myself. But I personally like the direction. Let's definitely reach out to the tennis community. I don't know if there is an association in town. I'm not entirely sure, but let's do what we can to reach out to the tennis folks. Because yeah, I mean, this is kind of a nice deal to have somebody fund and again, they had a relative plan. So I think that's the direction I'd like to just.
Right.
Because Dave, to your one of your points from maybe last week or last month or the month before was that the system does have a lot of tennis courts that people can use within the city of Brainerd. So we just have no pickleball. Really, I mean, we have it inside of the rink. It's packed to the brim. Even at the YMCA, they're flooding the YMCA to play inside of there, and so there's a lot of other sports that there's a large strain being put on a lot of sports, indoors and outdoors within the system, because of the usage of pickleball. So this, to me, was the most creative solution to this problem by utilizing that court. But to Mike's point, we don't really want to stifle people's ability to play tennis within the system
Right.
as well. So let's take that direction first. And then, like I said, we can kind of move on to talking about what Dave and I had heard at that presentation, if that's agreeable. I think that's step one.
I think
right?
it's just consensus, right? Do you really need a motion for that, Mike?
No, I just
Yeah.
wanted to get your opinion and whatnot. But can you guys give a brief summary of your meeting?
Yeah, so basically we met with the Pickleball Association, the local Pickleball Association, and those guys were very confident that they could raise what I think we agreed was about probably $70,000 to $75,000 to have that resurfaced, restriped, renetted to like 8 pickleball courts, I think was what they believed those dimensions would fit. So just having it full on pickleball only, seating and all those things. Again, sponsorship ideas, plans for usage, some amount of ideas for like subscription-based time and things like that, like ways to monetize it, ways to fundraise, ways to have sustainability, and make sure that for us on a maintenance level, the surface is also taken care of. So when it comes time to replace or repair that surface, we also have a plan for maintenance as well. Again, I think they were very confident and very happy that we were at least looking at this. But I think, looking at what it costs to put an entire, actual pickleball surface anywhere else within the system, this is the cheapest alternative. And so, again, it really boiled down to usage. But what they were looking for from us was to get us to all agree that the surface itself would be designated for pickleball after before they start fundraising. So if they fundraise the money, we were going to give them an absolute certainty that we would convert it. And so again, I think step one is to figure
Reach
out
out to them.
to the tennis side of things. But before they start fundraising, they just wanted some assurances that we were going to give them that surface to change over. So.
Is this the same group that's kind of the Brainerd, Baxter, East Skull Lake?
Yeah.
Rob Mason and
Yep.
others?
Yeah, and Eric Peterson is who we spoke to.
Yeah, it's
but-
kind of a larger, we've had a lot of discussions at East Skull Lake about their new city hall plans and the move to build new pickleball courts in East Skull Lake too. So this group has definitely got a lot of momentum right now, and we've heard a lot about the confidence level that they have in raising funds, similar to like what Walker did to build a $200,000 facility up there with no city funds.
Yeah.
And I think that was within like a week. So, I mean, I'm all for it as long as the meeting with the tennis kind of community goes well and things. I certainly, to your point, don't want to get into a situation where have a bunch of competing interests and the tennis community comes with pitchforks and torches saying can't take away our courts. Is there any way to do like a dual use kind of thing, or is it not really?
So here's my opinion on the dual use. I personally want the best pickleball courts that we can offer in the Lakes area. I want to be the place that people want to come. I want people clawing over each other to play on these courts because they're so nice. Yeah. And so the dual use idea I do like, of course, but if we're going to do this, if we're going to designate, especially this particular situation, right, we're going to designate a space that fits 8 courts, centrally located in the city. I want it to be the best surface we can get, the best striping we can get, the best nets we can get, utilizing funds from somebody else. Like, they know exactly what they want, and they want the best surface. They want the best lines. They want everything as, the best that their money can buy. And so, again, to the dual use point, yes, we can pull it off, but I think for what they're envisioning is they want 8 pickleball courts and they want it to be pickleball exclusive. So,
did you kind of hear of any expectation from a usage standpoint that they would get priority preference?
So one of their monetary ideas specifically was they have kind of like an 8 to 12, and they were speaking of other communities, 8 a.m. to noon, which I didn't really necessarily know was the prime time for pickleball. From 8 a.m. to noon, what other communities have done is they charge like a $75, like you just get a wristband, and then from 8 till noon, it's just a drop dropping in and out games, right? So you just rotate in. People are sitting on the bench waiting for their turn, and then you just push in. And there's just kind of a self-regulated system from 8 to 12, and that was kind of their, at least for the first year or something like that. I wouldn't say necessarily that they're grandfathered into that, but just a way that they can have an organized way to be able to use the courts that everybody's starting to pay for. That was kind of one of their ideas. Again, monetization-wise, we can look at a bunch of other things, but I think that was kind of one of those ideas that they did stress to us a couple of times in conversation that a few other communities had utilized. So,
Yeah, I think that discussion, they were basically looking for our willingness to participate in discussion with them about that. I think our dialogue back to them was that governments are not necessarily great at doing things, so we need to be partnering with people to figure out how this stuff can effectively work.
Yeah.
And so, if the best solution is for there to be a wristband, and then if you show up, it's self-regulated within the group, that if you got the wristband, you are able to participate within these hours. I have no problem with that type of stuff, but that's discussions that I think come back to the park board and we iron out what those things look like. They are wanting to know that we would be interested in at least talking about that type of stuff. So it's not just straight, no, we have a scheduled fee, you get your 20 minutes and you go home. But I think, that's my own personal philosophy though too. My own personal philosophy is that we're not very good at a lot of that stuff. And so if there are other people that are doing it better elsewhere and there are better solutions, we should be willing to listen to the people that are actually using the activity.
And that was kind of like utilizing our recreation specialists to be able to reach out to these associations and service groups and making sure that, these sort of things, the trains are running on time and that we have programs like this that are allowing and promoting usage within the system. So, again, from 8 to 12, if that's the witching hour, if that's the magic 4 hours that we're playing pickleball every day, coming up, and again, having a dialogue with them about usage and again, monetization, coming up with maintenance plans, things like that. Because they want the court to last as well. That was the vibe. So it's not just they want to build a $75,000 surface. They want this court to be able to be maintained and, to be able to use for an extremely long time. And so, again, a lot of it was, we want to, step one before we start fundraising, we want assurances that this surface is going to be designated as soon as the money is raised for pickleball specifically. And then the conversation further is just, how do we kind of add that, that sort of usage and how do we make it so it's a little bit more organized, what role does staff play, what role does the association play, what do we want to decide, as far as usage and charging for organized usage. So
Yeah, that'll roll into the discussion as well, because obviously they're going to want to advertise as well, or have some kind of return to the people that are sponsoring as well. So that'll get into like a banner type question as well that we can talk about later. But I think from our standpoint, from the tennis side of things, there is usage, but a lot of the time that usage is outside coming in. And sadly, my belief on that is there are a lot of tennis courts. So just right next to us at the high school, there's a lot of tennis courts. Forest View has a lot of tennis courts. Baxter has tennis courts. There's a lot of tennis courts in our system currently. It may not be directly in the city of Brainerd, but usage-wise, we're seeing more people on there on a daily basis as I drive by, just anecdotally, using it for pickleball than we are for tennis. And it kind of seems to already be from that split. The side that is using the pickleball tends to be the side that we're looking at, the south side with the 3 courts, and then the 2 courts that are on the northern side, which are the new courts. That's where you tend to see people playing tennis. So just anecdotally, we definitely see more usage of pickleball. Yeah, but again, there is some usage, but we see a lot of times like other schools coming and using our tennis courts and stuff. We got to be mindful too that is not necessarily our responsibility. So there are other facilities that they could potentially be using. If we were the only basketball court in town, we can understand us being like, oh, we should probably make sure we have the only basketball court, but we're not the only tennis court in town. So
Right.
And like I said, speaking to some other community members, like indoors right now or indoors during the summer, basketball programs, things like that, there is a strain indoors. Like there's just a huge need for pickleball in the system right now, and this is one of our best solutions to that. And so trying to move forward and again, having those dialogues with the tennis community so that maybe we can come back next month and have a concrete decision so these guys can get to work, and because they want to have it done by the summer. Like they want to have that money raised, and we want to have a guarantee and a plan to get this thing done as the snow thaws. So these guys are incredibly eager to get this done. So we want to kind of probably come back in January's meeting and just be done, right?
Yeah,
and decided by then.
And to Paul's point, that this group is not just Brainerd focused, they're focused on the entire region and are having discussions in other places. This to them is the most viable option to move forward quickly. And so it behooves us to be prepared to be in that place to be successful.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I want it. I mean, it's so nice to have, like, that community is butts in seats and feet on grass type of thing, and we'll be able to fill that thing on a very regular basis and promote it throughout the entire area, be the home for the best pickleball courts in the area within 40 miles. So and again, their monetization and sponsorship plans, windscreens and all that stuff, we can have increased conversations and maybe have the association bring a presentation on monetization and thoughts on usage and things like that in the future. But again, just coming back with a guarantee for them in January to help them then come in and say, okay, you guys start your fundraising, come in and talk to us about monetization and things like that, or usage in February or March. And then by the time the summer rolls around, they've got their money in hand and we're ready to get rocking. So I think that's
Right.
where we were at.
I have a question. The 75 that you're saying, is that including the nets and all of the things they want?
Yeah,
That's
so
like-
it
'cause
was.
obviously we know nets
So actually,
sometimes get ruined.
Jesse had gotten an estimate from Wilmer, that Wilmer project that had been done, which was close to what Kevin Ruin and those guys had done for their estimate on that court specifically. They just had somebody actually come out, look at it again, and then to Dave's point, just add another 10,000 on top of that. 15,000, and then add another $5,000 on top of that for change. So, we went to them and said, okay, well, you're looking at 56. That's what you think. But let's look more in the $75,000 range, and that should handle everything.
Okay, and then we're talking about like when you're standing at, the boulders, we're
Yep.
talking about the course on the right.
Right,
Okay,
yep.
perfect.
Yep. Yeah, the larger fenced-in area
Yeah.
there. So.
Yeah, and this is very similar to what we've done with the skate park in terms of just allocating land and saying, this is not your land. However, if you finish your project and come back with funding for it, we will allow you to
splash
move
pad.
forward. And splash pad, but the same thing. Yeah, exactly.
So.
Right.
Mike.
So first I'm going to do an inventory of our tennis courts, to your point, to have a number so that when I do talk to the tennis individuals, I have a number. And then I'm going to already talked to our finance, Connie, and, we need to set up a funnel, for these funds. And then just going back to the pickleball people and saying, okay, got everything in line, what's your plan? Probably get another bid, as it gets closer to, the
Get
new
two
year.
quotes, yeah.
Make sure, to Schaefer's point that, make sure you got the poles, because these poles need to be embedded in the ground, and they're going to have to core drill and so forth. So I know that original bid, I think, was just for surface, not for the poles and stuff. So I'll just reiterate that and then talk to them and just, I just love the action. When you get a group of people that are excited about something and help to improve your park, it's hard to say no to that, right?
Right.
So this is just really amazing. So thank you too for attending that meeting and really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I would like to see definitely maybe in a post from Parks and Rec, just, hey, do you play tennis in our system? We want to hear from you. So
Right.
let's get. We want to have a serious dialogue with folks, not our tens of viewers on these meetings may not know that we have a call to action for them. So let's get as much out there as we can and get as much feedback as we possibly can from the citizenry. So any other discussion on pickleball? And like I said, so I think direction here is let's get some info and try to come back and make us a concrete decision for these guys so they can get fundraising at the start of, in our January meeting.
Yeah, if we could add to that direction to just make sure that we're having a conversation with the pickleball group as well to inform them of.
Yep.
We're probably looking at the end of next month for that final decision.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
And I'll get you Eric Peterson's contact
have his
information.
letter.
Okay, very
Yep.
good. So, all right, very good. Yeah, and just kind of reaching out to them and giving them a nice summarization of that. Very good. Thanks, Dave. All right, we'll close down the discussion on the pickleball courts and move on to approval of the Park Board 2025 meeting schedule.
Oh, my gosh.
So
We
moved.
can all forget that we have it on Christmas again?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on next year's schedule? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We have next year's schedule concrete. 8B, presentation on the Brainerd Community Actions attempt at the banner program from Mr. Mayor Dave Bedeau.
Dave Bedeau, Executive Director, Brainerd Community Action, 321 South 7th Street, Suite 105. If you're really trying to find us. Down in the basement, you can find us. It's a dungeon, but you can locate yourselves. We have been approached as the city and also from our organization as looking at potential for what banners could look like in the city for the Parks Department. It's something that we've done for a long time, but we don't necessarily do well. And I think that there's potential for some movement into a different direction. Spearheading this conversation and something that I'd be looking for you guys to potentially make either a similar movement that you just had there or a motion to move forward with is the Brainerd Baxter Baseball Association has reached out and they are looking to make an offer to the city for banners on the 4 baseball fields. So they are in a position where they would like to purchase and install 4 new scoreboards for the youth baseball fields. Main reason being usage and availability of usage. So one of the things as a baseball parent that you run into at many opportunities when you go to watch your child play baseball is the scoreboards are hit or miss. And when you're watching baseball and the scoreboard is not working, it is a much less enjoyable experience than when the scoreboard is working. One of the problems that the city has is that the scoreboards are a couple years old. There is a direct need for access for the control panels in order to be able to make them work. Sometimes that access is not available for the organizations that are using it when they want to use it, because obviously they're using it a lot of times on the weekends for tournaments and for other things. So one of the things that the association is really interested in is the ability to purchase scoreboards that they can access using apps or through other devices so that they can be controlled very easily, so that there is more usage of the scoreboards for baseball. So what they came forward with is an estimated cost of about $25,000 for the scoreboards themselves. I believe it was about $24,000 and change, and then installation as well. They are interested in covering that cost completely for the city and having them installed for us. The ask in return is that they could take over the banner program for those 4 baseball fields and have the banners that they raise through their fundraising go towards that, because they believe through that they can recoup the cost of these scoreboards over a very short amount of time. So that's kind of 1A. In having that conversation, it definitely opened up some doors to say, okay, what is it that the potential we could do with our banners could be in the future? We just went through a process, or you, excuse me, just went through a process of creating a visual type of style for our amenities and that sort of thing. And I think it behooves us to move a advertising setup more in that direction as well, where we're creating something that is less detractive and more additive to the surfaces. So if we're using the Brainerd Baxter Association as an example of what we could potentially do, what we would like to at least begin discussions with you guys about is potentially setting up something with community action in order to look at individual amenities and individual programs that could potentially be utilized and do some type of advertising for that we could then funnel back to that particular amenity. So pickleball being another great example, they're going to want to go raise funds. Raising the funds is going to mean that somebody's going to want to put their logo somewhere near it. And so having something in place where we can easily say, this is what we're looking for, this is the potential that we have for that, here's what that could potentially look like. If we're setting something up that is a little bit more concrete and secure, then when we have these things that come forward, we could potentially just say, perfect, we'd love the idea of you putting in a new pickleball court. Here's what we're willing to do in exchange in terms of what banners on those courts could potentially look like. The issue with that is that not every every amenity is created equal, and not all interest is going to be created equal. So what we would potentially be interested in offering is the ability to create, based off of your interest, specific amenities that you're looking to advertise on, specific amenities that you're looking to add banners to, and then taking those and creating funds for each one that are then managed specifically for that amenity. So if our hockey rinks are something that people are interested in, what does that look like? Are we putting it, you've got your fencing along the backside on the one end. Maybe we're looking at 4 banners or something along those lines. But then taking that money, setting it aside specifically for hockey rinks, and then from our standpoint, what we're really interested in is getting people in the community that are interested in doing exactly what you talked about here, a tennis association. I don't believe there is a tennis association. Actually, I had someone that approached me a couple of years ago and wanted to start one, and it just never got off the ground. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but our organization is interested in that. We're interested in people in the community that are looking to do things in the community and helping be an incubator to get them started so that they can then go create a baseball association, which we were involved with, or go and create the skate park association, which we're involved with. Those are the things that we're interested in, and potentially what this could do is create a system for us that we could say, look, we've got some funds that have been coming in for this. If there's potential for people that want to do something like that, we can slide you in and hopefully, in our eyes, take that on, as i.e. like the Baseball Association would like to do, and then have that be something that is then separated from ourselves, but is then run by a group that says, we are using this, we are funneling money back to that amenity, here's where the dollars are, and then reporting that back to the city. So what we're looking for is just a conversation. What could that potentially look like? From my standpoint, what are the amenities that you would potentially be looking at doing something like that with? What are the ones that you are not interested in doing something like that with? And then what would you potentially want something like that to look like? From our standpoint, we're a nonprofit. We're not interested in making money. We're interested in making sure that there's things going on in our community. We would have to recoup some kind of percentage off of this, probably 2-3%. Initially, I wanted to say 1%. I kind of looked at the dollars. We'd be flopping upside down on that. But what we'd like to do is create a system in which there's consistency. So the material that's being used, the banners that are being used, the look that they have is consistent, and then asking the park board, what would you like that to look like? Maybe you want the tennis courts to be with blue banners. Maybe you want the baseball fields to have green banners. Maybe you want everything to have different colors. I don't know. But from my own standpoint, what I would love to see is the idea of having like the green that we use with a white logo on it, and that just becomes something that it looks sharp and it has a nice, concise look to it. And then there's a similar style, shape, consistency to it. Right now, the city runs the banner program, and the problem is the banners don't make their way up onto the fields all the time. We're consistently in some kind of area of flux, and that's not a knock against staff or anything. It's a lot to take on. You got to take the banners down. You got to make sure the banners are of good quality, make sure that you're continuing to recycle the stock of them. So what we'd like to do is just create a conversation in which we're looking at holistically, what would something like that look like? What are the potentials for it? And then if we have a group, i.e. pickleball, that comes forward and says, we want to raise money for this, then we have something set in place that says this is what we potentially would just do and how that would work. So from my standpoint, what I'm really looking for is just the opportunity to sit down with potentially staff and maybe a member or two, a liaison from the park board, and just come back with potential for what that would look like.
Thank you, Dave. Questions for Dave on his concept?
So the idea is basically that this banner program would be funds that would funnel back into that specific amenity. And it would be kind of a cookie cutter program that you could apply to pickleball, baseball, softball,
Dog park,
dog
whatever.
park,
You know.
whatever. You know, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think we've long struggled with the banner program,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's as good as what it could potentially be to help funnel funds back into specific things. Even as, you know, somebody raises a bunch of funds for pickleball and maybe the city has some cost share or something that, and those funds are set aside to help, you know, upgrade if they're only planning on doing one thing, and you can say, well, we have $20,000 from our banner program for the dog park set aside, and we can upgrade to this, you know, makes it a little better.
Can add the dog
More
washing
maintenance
station,
friendly.
yeah.
Yeah, more,
right.
more maintenance friendly or more
Yeah.
whatever, you know, so.
Yeah, and I think there's two ways to look at it. You could do something upfront where, like, the Baseball Association has come forward, they've made an offer, they say for X amount we'll do this, and then you're on the back end then going, perfect, you're now in charge of banners. Now, obviously, there should be regulations to that in terms of what we are expecting, when they go up, when they come down, that sort of thing. If they're ripped and they're flowing around, who's in charge of that stuff? But there's that aspect, and then there's the other aspect of slowly being able to raise funds to
For
then
other amenities
be
too,
reused.
that
Yeah.
maybe an association doesn't run,
Yep.
like a dog park.
And then having these places like the Baseball Association coming in and giving us their vision for what things look like. Because, I mean, as much as I like watching softball and baseball, these guys have a much better idea of, okay, we want the fences to be a little higher because of this or whatever it may be. And if the association can assist in the funding of all of that and come in here and present their passion to us, whether it's baseball, pickleball, a tennis association that would likely form. You know, we have a lot of interested groups and a lot of passionate groups that would hitch on to this particular train and try to generate funds for their favorite thing.
Yep.
Mike.
Yeah, I just like the aspect that these funds can help go back into that program and help our budget out. Because
right.
our budget is tough at times. And if these individuals can, you know, help raise that for these amenities to be kept up to the par that we want them to be at, that's just really huge. That would be awesome.
I think the big thing is consistency. So again, from our standpoint, the only real interest we have in this is that it allows us to have a carrot to dangle in front of people to get them activated. So I would love to see softball become an association. I think that should happen. If there is dollars associated with an advertising aspect of it that we can then dangle in front of them and say, look, there's potential dollars here that you guys can take on and then help to refunnel where that stuff goes. That's
Lights or fence or whatever.
it's a huge incentive for people to say, you don't have to just go out and do this. We've already created a template in which you can then just jump in, start off, and you don't even have to necessarily be a 501c3 to begin with. That's how our organization works. We help you incubate into becoming a 501c3. Our goal is never to, I say this all the time, we're not a bank. You know, we're not here to hold funds. We're here to activate people and move them forward. We want you to become a 501c3, or we want you to start a foundation or a fund that can then transfer into being something bigger. That doesn't always happen. You know, sometimes we're just raising funds to make a skate park. But if the ultimate goal is to find individuals, this, from our standpoint, allows us to dangle a few carrots and then also go, hey, we see that there's always a need for new things, or even just simply resurfacing the tennis courts, which needs to happen.
Yeah,
and
improvement
upgrading.
or maintenance, yeah.
Yeah, but we would really like it to be amenity specific,
Yeah.
so that everyone knows I've donated money towards hockey, and I'd like it to go to those hockey rinks, or I'd like it to go to, you know, pickleball.
I think
in
that's
this
kind of a
instance.
first step,
Yeah.
would be an identification process and bring that list forward to park board as a starting point.
And it opens up the conversations. Like I said, it's really tough for us to have a direct lifeline to the community, right? And have them have discussions about their favorite amenity or their pieces. And so they're coming to us with these conversations, or our liaison, which will likely be the recreation specialist, and giving them a better idea of, okay, what is going on? Because again, we have a lot of conversations about, tennis. It would be really nice if we just knew usage on tennis, right? If we knew, right? But we don't. And so this allows us to open up those types of things and really get feedback from the community as they form groups to try to find this money or improve specific amenities. So I'm a huge fan of this just because it opens up dialogue at the very least. Kara.
So just thinking ahead, and I know we start the conversation, but, so they make their money, the scoreboards are amazing. And then they're like, yeah, we don't really want to do banners. So I think there needs, be a plan of like, okay, cool, well then this group is taking over. But, before we no longer are in charge of it as the park board, I think we need to have like a plan in place for that.
So I would definitely say that the park board would be in charge of this. We would just be facilitating the process for people. We would want the park board to be making those decisions based off of what this stuff looks like and what the regulations are to it. So in an instance of like the money up front, if you put in the scoreboards and then decide you don't want to do banners, that doesn't really hurt the city too much. But if it's a scenario in which you're building towards something, then yeah, there has to be a direct tie back in. And again, we envision this being something where it's a presentation back to the city back to the park board on a, semi-annual or annual basis to say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what are the things we're looking at. There's potential that you might say, we'd like banners everywhere, and then the community says we don't need banners here. But Mills Field is a great example. Mills Field should be its own entity that is raising funds for itself, and there's tons of potential there for it, but there's not necessarily the arm that wants to go do that. And so what we'd like to do is just create a boilerplate process.
Bridge, basically, to bridge
Yep.
that gap, and
Yep.
the
And
city has to set aside different fund
Yep.
accounts to store that money until somebody potentially does.
yeah, and then just weigh out where's the interest. I think the biggest thing is that if you just have a flat rate, which is kind of what we looked at in the past, you're kind of missing the boat a little bit because your individual sports are going to have different interest, and then youth versus adult is going to have very different, just even from different sponsors. So we just like to try and take a look at it from more of a, how do we create a format that then is easy to move forward into the next one. So maybe we start with a couple and then we move to the next in the next couple of years. I'm always a fan of proof of concept. So
Yeah, start with adult softball, start with baseball,
Yep.
and then
Pickleball.
learn our lessons.
Yep.
Yeah.
And figure out the nuances to it, and then adjust and reapply.
Yep.
For the existing ones and also the ones moving.
Yep. Yeah. So pickleball would be the interesting one because you got two wildly different things coming before you. You've got the Baseball Association saying, "Hey, we've got an entity we'd like to put in. We've got the funding for it. We just want a contract to be able to run the banners on those fields." I think it's a great idea. Pickleball is potential dollars being raised, which before they go do that, they should really have an understanding of what they're gifting back to people in exchange for that. So if you're a sponsor and you give $5,000 versus $10,000, you want to know what that difference is. And so it behooves us to get ourselves in a place where we have that prepared. So you're not just saying pickleball, go after it. And you're kind of saying like, here's what we envision there being a little bit of guidelines to it. So you're not just willy-nilly.
So, yeah, I think establishing a work group for this, whether again through with Mike and the rec specialists and then community action and one of us as a representative would probably be the direction to go.
I like it.
I like it
So,
too.
I don't, do we have to set a date or something like that for the work group right now? Okay, so I think as far as, I don't know if we necessarily need a motion, but let's maybe establish a work group with community action, maybe have a little bit better of a concept of what the Baseball Association would like to do specifically with the boards and whatever.
Yeah, we
for
have
that
all
group,
the
but-
information.
Okay,
for
so
the Baseball
let's just
Association
establish
is-
a group. Again, as one board member liaison, have staff and community action, maybe a representative from the association, and let's move forward from there.
Yeah, the Baseball Association is ready to move. So.
Very good. Let's get cooking on
Do
that
we need to
then.
have these meetings before we pull the baseball association in?
I guess we need the fundamental side of it,
Yeah, I would
initial,
do the
like, and
fundamental
just
side
have,
and then pull them
ask
in
all
at a
those
different
questions. And then, we'll come back to the board with the findings. And by we, I mean whoever decides to be the liaison for the board. But yeah, so I think
Give us a
that'll-
good one, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. All the hard work there, and also with the association stepping up to repair some amenities. We'll move on to the public forum, time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the board. We will open it at 4:40, and seeing no hands, we will close it at 4:40 and move on to staff reports.
The one thing I know, it may not be directly related to Parks and Recreation, but I think it is our transit department is going to be taking some of their clients to Winter Wonderland. And again, I thanked Dave, the mayor, yesterday at the council meeting. And again, thank you, Dave. These individuals need to get out and about, and transit is typically during the day, right? Well, I tasked her about thinking outside the box, and she got approval from the state and our contract to do something like this. And I think this is just going to be one of many things regarding special events, even like our Christmas tree lighting. I wanted them to be there. It was just too last minute, so we couldn't orchestrate that. But for this, we planned ahead, and so they're going to be going 2 days next week. So it's really, I think it's just neat.
Yeah, that's actually incredible. And again, yeah, to your point, relevant to us because any events that we hold in the system, we can get folks over to them and say, hey,
Utilize the
we're putting
system
this
that's
on.
already set up by
Yeah,
the city,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, we're putting this thing together, and we'll come pick you up if you want to come to this thing. So very good.
And lastly, our rec specialist is going to be starting on the 30th. And in January, I'll be conversing with Dave regarding special events and downtown stuff. And I just want to help cultivate what you've already started and just piggyback off that and just help any way that we can. Because I really think downtown special events is one thing that is just huge. There's a huge potential for that. Individuals want to get out. Families want to get out and just enjoy our downtown. We have a great downtown. There's a lot of momentum going downtown. It's a beautiful facility. Our street skies are on top of it. And so I'm really just looking forward to cultivating that whole special events going downtown. So I'm really excited about that. And our new rec person is going to be doing that. So I'm excited to talk about future programs and stuff and doing that. So that's all that I have.
Very good. Thank you much. We'll move on to board member reports. Start with Paul.
Got nothing. I do have one thing. Started at the YMCA daycare this last week. Great facility. Great amenity to our community.
Very good. Yeah, again, very excited about pickleball myself. I want to be the central place for that, and I think we have an opportunity to do it. So I'm really stoked to continue that conversation. Kara, what do you got?
I'm just going to bring up the beach again at Lum Park. I'm going to keep bringing it up every meeting until, so I don't have any updates, but I just want to remind staff that we want to have a plan for that so we can have a nice beach
Want to get
come
that
this summer.
the murkiness cleaned up. Yeah.
Right. And we do. I have already talked to our street guys, and we are going to make something that is going to be really good. I'm going to be working with the DNR, making sure that we're in, compliance with everything, right? But no, I heard you. Sorry, turn that off. But we are, because I want it too. I mean, I don't want it for myself. I want it for the city of Brainerd.
Me too.
Lum Park always was a staple in our community, and now it's even a bigger staple with our campground being expanded. The beach is phenomenal, the kayaks. And I'm going to challenge everyone sometime next year in the spring that we all do the kayaking run, and we all get our kayaks. So
Board meeting on the lake. Yeah. First one to tip over. Yeah.
the first.
We'll do water polo.
Thank you.
Very good. Dave, you got anything?
I just want to say thank you to our staff. It's the end of the year, and I just want to say thank you to all the park staff and street staff that work so well together. I think the parks looked really good this year. I think there's still room for improvement, but I think the shift that the park board made a couple years ago in focusing on the trimming of the trees, trimming them up, and that sort of stuff has really made a huge difference. And I think if we continue down that angle, we're going to end up in a really good place. From the city side of things, I think you guys have done a pretty good job in terms of your budget and in terms of, well,
I'll
it's not an
I'll
excellent
take
job.
pretty good. I'll take
Not
pretty
an
good.
excellent job.
I'll
It's
take
a
pretty good.
I'll give you an extra pretty. Pretty good job.
Very good.
But I just want to thank you guys for your efforts in reducing your budget and setting a tone for the rest of the city. I think that was really greatly appreciated. We were able to, last night, make that final announcement of a 2% increase, which is far better than an 8% increase. And so, but the thing I want to make sure that we're not doing is just always cutting parks. That's the first thing that gets cut. And I think you guys having a plan and being able to support your decisions and your reasoning puts you in a really strong position moving forward. So I just want to thank you guys for all the work that you've done.
Very good. Your thanks are appreciated. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second.
You're the only one around to Kara.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.